Okay, it is hot in Oklahoma today, so I am not going to record my mug because I have a tank top on and I don't want to put you all through that trauma. I don't generally wear tank tops, modesty purposes and whatnot. So, yeah, we'll just kind of have a talk while I am attempting to get my sewing machine ready to do some sewing. And I had a question in one of the comments that was, how do you stay on top of it all or get it all done or do all the things, and I get that question a lot. It is honestly one of the questions I get most and have through the years. How do you do it all? And I think what it is not that I'm actually accomplishing a lot more than anybody else necessarily. It's that I'm accomplishing different things that other people don't tend to do as much. Like, for instance, the sewing. Sewing, making clothes, costumes, and household items is one of those things that just gives me great joy, that I just really enjoy. My mother, I moved in with her in 1982 when I was 10. And she had a treadle sewing machine when I moved in with her. And she worked in construction. She drove a road grader, and she was gone a lot. Plus, she was a druggie and was out partying a lot too. So there's that as well. So I was, like a lot of Gen Xers, left to my own devices a lot, and which was fine. It worked out for us that way, and I have no qualms. We did what we did, and it was okay for us. And it was all, she did the best she could with what she got pregnant with me when she was 15. So, there's just a lot there. There's a lot there. Anyway, second she gave me, the ability to have anything at all to do with that treadle sewing machine, I was experimenting and making, things for my dolls and stuff like that. I played with dolls until I still play with dolls. Okay, I'm not gonna kid myself here. I just still play with dolls. One thing that she and I kind of would kind of bond over was, this is gonna be so crooked and wonky, was crafty things. One of the first things she did was, whenever I moved in with her, was took me shopping to a craft store of some sort in the Oklahoma City area, and we having issues with my threads, and I don't know why. And she bought some little doodads and trinkets and whatnot, and after we got home, we did a little craft thing, and that was just one of the things that we did enjoy occasionally doing together. So, and I didn't get to do that where I lived, in the places that I lived before. Crafts weren't necessarily a thing, and I wasn't really just allowed to do a whole lot. So anytime I got like a pencil and paper, I was thrilled to pieces and working on, some kind of art or something. And so having, some craft supplies available to me and that sewing machine and whatever fabric we could come up with, and I was in hog heaven. So it's just one of my things, first of all, and a lot of people, you know, they're like, oh, I can't sew a straight line. Well, I mean, if you're paying any attention to what's going on here, and if you can see very much of it, I don't cut a straight line. I don't sew a straight line. Straight lines are very overrated as far as I'm concerned. So, I do this because I like it. So, whenever you're trying to figure out what you can do and what you can accomplish, you kind of need to do like a brain dump. And I do this occasionally. I reevaluate my life like several times a year. Usually January, August, and then a little bit in the spring and in the fall again. And just kind of, go back and forth. And okay, Lord, am I doing what you're wanting me to do? It did it again. Why are you doing this to me? I think it's the thread is not happy. But think of the things. Okay, what has God given you? I'm going to be talking in a summit here later this month. The Myrna Buckles with Legacy in Action is going to be doing, and it's on your calling as a woman. And I think sometimes and even I feel like the church has had some misteachings on what a woman's calling actually is. And God gives us callings that just fit into our place in life, our circumstances, and our situation in life. When you get married, your husband is a calling. When you have children, your children are a calling. So that's just, to me, that's life. That is the way it is. So there's nothing that trumps those unless you're putting out a fire, There's going to be times that, okay, you and I are not getting along well. Let us try somebody else here. Oh, and it might be, I know what it might be. Maybe it's this. Let's pull you out. Where are you? I don't even know what there we go. I shouldn't have pulled that the way I pulled that, because now I won't know where I'm going with it. Isn't that terrible? Let's see. I cannot remember which way you were supposed to go. Do you go this way? I'll figure it out. Anyway, if you have all of a sudden a parent that is needing help, and then your husband and your children are going to understand, or they're going to have to understand that becomes a priority for a moment. Which way are we going with this? I do not remember. Oh yeah, like that. Okay. This way. Are you? I think you go over here. Me trying to think and talk and do at the same time is kind of ridiculous. Anyway, so your husband and children are going to understand if you need to go help your mom with something for a little bit, if there's an emergency, if somebody in the family has nope, I did not do something right, has an accident or something, then that needs to be dealt with. Okay, sewing machine, you gotta give me some input here because I forgot how you're supposed to be threaded. I think it's that way. Yeah, I think that's right. So, and if one of the children gets sick, then, you know, hubby's gonna have to go to the wayside for a little bit because there's a sick child. Why are you doing this? Maybe that was my problem. Maybe I've got a attention issue. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Anyway, if you've got, you know, if the toilet overflows, the toilet becomes the priority, right? Okay, so you get your priorities straight, and it's like, if you have a husband, your husband's a priority. If you have children, your children are going to be a priority. And those are callings that God puts on your life whenever those circumstances in your life change and you get married or you have a child. That's how that goes. That's what that is. That's where we're having issues. And then, you know, when something else happens, you have to deal with it. So another calling that, well, and then we have talents, gifts and talents. And Jesus did the whole parable of the talents thing and said, you know, you need to be aware. If God gives you talents, well, that's helpful too. Turkey. If God gives you, you know, specific gifts and talents, you need to use them. There we go. Okay. And so, but those gifts and talents aren't necessarily a calling. And I think we get that mixed up. It took me a long time to get to that point. If you're still with me, praise the Lord. I'm a little rattle-brained here lately. There's just been so much. Anyway, so, you know, you need to kind of like brainstorm. Okay, what are the gifts and talents and the passions and things that God has given me to begin with? And mine have always been like research, writing, and art. All right. I always wanted to be a scientist from the time I was little. And so it makes sense that I would be doing research today and sharing that research with others, right? So it works into it. Whenever I married my husband became a calling, and my home became a calling. And when we started having children, then the children became a calling. That's working much better. And when in 2019, God called me to, boy, howdy, I don't cut straight. This is ridiculous. I have no idea how this pillow is going to work. When God called me to work at the newspaper, you know, Paul and I had a sit-down talk about me working outside of the home for other people and what that was going to look like and what my boundaries were going to be, you know, with the newspaper and whatnot. And it was an adjustment. And we had to kind of refinagle how some of the household things got done. At that time, we no longer had little children anymore. So that's, oops, I wasn't supposed to sew that all the way through. I'm doing great. I'm telling you, my brain is not all the way hitched lately. So, you know, I didn't have any young children. We didn't have anybody in diapers or teething anymore. two graduated right after I signed up with the newspaper, and that left two, and we had two graduates before that got engaged, and we had two that were still homeschooling. So, but they were older, one kind of junior high age and one high school age. And I don't keep track of grades and stuff like that. So, it was what it was. So, they didn't need my constant attention. I made it, pretty clear that they could text me on their dad's phone at any point in time, and as soon as I could, I would get a hold of them and answer whatever questions, and try to make myself as available as possible in that way. So, and then that was the end of 2018. And then beginning of 2019, we had two weddings in the spring, one at the end of February and one at the beginning of May. So ask me how I kept my sanity through that. During this time, while I was training with the newspaper, during a period of training and learning what I needed to be doing, and had two weddings, two still homeschooling. One began an internship, and the other one was starting her little farm business. And, just trying to kind of keep things, stay on top of things, basically. I didn't have much as far as, I didn't do much as far as house and stuff is concerned at all. They were all old enough to take care of it. And, the one thing that you have to remember whenever you're giving up household responsibilities to other people as the homemaker is you've also got to give up your expectations of how things are going to be taken care of, because they're not going to do it, the way you did it. So I really had to just kind of let go and let them handle things. And I had a few stipulations, please clean up the kitchen before bed at night, because everybody was like having their meals and stuff at different times of the day. There were days that I was not home until 9 in the evening. So there were some days that I left at 7 o'clock in the morning and didn't get home until 9 at night. Especially once we hit the 2020 stuff, because the newspaper lost half of its staff during 2020 for various reasons, not all having to do with any of the debacle stuff that was going on. Some of it was just, they moved, they got different jobs, different things like that. So it wasn't necessarily to do with all the stuff that was going on, but that meant that everybody there at the newspaper had to, take on more responsibility. So I was the only reporter through most of 2020 and 2021. And just me and the editor. And he basically did the sports stuff and just a few other things. We had some correspondents that took care of some things, local stuff, and I did all the public meetings and things that still had to be going on. And so priorities changed. It was a calling. It was something that my husband agreed that I needed to be doing. We were of one accord about it. So, that was important to have that. The children were very supportive and proud of, what I was doing. Though they missed me. They definitely missed me. especially once the grandbabies started coming along, and I was there for both births in 2020. But, you know, one of our daughters missed my availability a lot and does not ever want me to take on a full-time job ever again. I think she'd be happy if I never took on a part-time job ever again. And yeah, I really enjoyed the newspaper, but you know, it was a lot. And I got teased because of my diet. First of all, I have a biblically clean diet. So therefore I try to stay away from pork and seafood stuff. You know, I do eat fish, but if it's got scales and fins. And so I got some flack because I didn't eat a whole lot of junk food or, you know, soda pop and things like that. Well, because of my health, and I've had this issue for a very, very long time. We just didn't always know what it was, as it is with, you know, autoimmune issues. And it was, I just know that I'm not going to be able to function. As a matter of fact, we got used to like everybody wanting to get like a foo-foo coffee, and that's what I call the fancy coffees. And we don't have a Starbucks out here, and I wouldn't, once I figured out, you know, the whole Tiamat thing with the Starbucks, and I may have to do a video on that sometime, but, you know, Starbucks is basically, I think that, to me, it runs into the scripture that says not to eat food that's been, you know, offered to idols. So they've got an idol right there on all of their stuff, their logo, their building, all that kind of stuff. But we don't have that here anyway. So it was a local little Christian-owned coffee shop. Everybody liked to get the, you know, fancy flavor coffee. And I figured out really quick that I could not do that because I would be hurting so bad afterwards, that I just, okay, we can't do that. So, you know, I had to really, really watch my diet. So here's one of the things. I'm finally getting to the point, maybe. This is one of the things that I do. I took a lot of water with me. So I had water, but then also this is a little bit of lemon juice, some stevia. I just do the packets, but you could use whatever. And a little bit of kombucha in with it. And sometimes I will do a little bit of an herbal tea with nettle and dandelion and maybe some other herbs. I like red clover, elderberries, rose hips, you know, just things like that I kind of mix up my own. And I will mix it up in a drink concoction, maybe put some collagen in with it or something. I did a lot of protein shakes. I carried with me protein bars on a regular basis, and I would get from Walmart, I would get like salad stuff. I like their kale salad mix, and then avocados, and, you know, try to just really, really try to do a good job of eating well, and taking in lots of fluids and lots of vitamins, minerals in liquid form as much as possible, and was consistent with my supplements. That's so important, to be consistent with the supplements, and it can be so hard to do, but it's extremely important. And, you know, that type of thing. So I hope that makes sense. so that's one of the things, is you've got to stay on top of your health. You really, really, really have got to stay on top of your health. And just do what you know is good for you and that your body needs to do what it needs to do at the different seasons in your life. Nourishing your body properly is huge. It's just huge. I also did cleanses. My chiropractor had a cleanse that I did in about the middle of 2020, whenever the other reporter was leaving, because I knew I was going to be taking on extra load and I wanted to be prepared and as beefed up in my health as possible. So yeah, so I went through that with chiropractor. It was oh my goodness, it was a lot, but I really do think it helped immensely. So I think that was a very good thing that I did to do that. And then we make sure that I made sure that I was getting good rest. I mean, when I got home, I basically, you know, took a shower and if I hadn't eaten, would eat something if I needed to. Sometimes I have supper and sometimes I don't. I consistently have breakfast. Definitely, for me, that is the most important meal of the day. So I do that. I have breakfast. It gets my blood sugar, you know, kind of settled for the day usually. And then try to have, like, you know, a more like veggie type lunch if possible. Sometimes I'm not always good at that. I will have, you know, pizza and whatnot. So I'm not the most healthy person in the world. I try. But then I would go to bed. So, you know, I'd say hey to everybody, hear about their day, kind of rant about whatever was going on in my day, and then get settled and go to bed. So if I was going to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, some nights, you know, to try to help make up for those nights that I wasn't getting home until 9 and wouldn't, you know, get to bed until later. Thankfully, the people I was working for were very flexible. So if I had a late night meetings or something, I didn't have to come in as early the next day. So my sleep schedule kind of just worked with that if I got home early enough, I'd head to bed as early as 7 o'clock in the evening. And if if I got home late, then I would sleep in the next morning, which, you know, was great. It worked great for all of us that way. I think I want to start on the other end. And then, you know, so lots of fluids, good nutrition, sleep. I tried to make sure that I got, as often as possible, at least 9 hours of sleep. I need 9 hours of sleep a night. And then on the weekends, I put the phone up, and I would leave the phone in the other room. I was not available on the weekends. If there wasn't something specific that I needed to cover, and usually, since I didn't live close, I lived a distance away, usually my weekends were free. So unless there was a tornado or something that I needed to go, you know, cover, I was usually fine to just put up the phone and not be available all weekend for anybody. I didn't get much crafting and stuff done during that time. Little bits. My boss, the publisher, she's a craft gal, so occasionally we would encourage each other to do something crafty, and I really appreciated that about her. She would encourage it, for us to do fun things. We decorated the newspaper. I did it again. We decorated the newspaper. There were times that, I mean, you know, they decorated for Christmas and Halloween and Easter, and I don't do any of those things. But, you know, I gently let them know that I wasn't there, that I didn't do those things, but I still helped decorate and, you know, have fun with them. I'm not going to be prudish about it, and just kind of, you know, pray through it. If there was something specific that, you know, the Lord, you know, that I felt was definitely against my convictions, then I wouldn't do that, and they were respectful of it. But for the most part, I, you know, tried to participate as much as possible. I hope that makes sense. But, you know, I didn't get a lot done during that time. It was a season, so I didn't clean the house. I didn't do the cooking for the most part. And my husband and the children just kicked right in and took care of things. And it was great. So, you know, and if you don't have that, then I'm assuming there's some other things that you don't have. You know, if you are in a situation where you are, you know, a single mom or a single woman taking care of a parent or something, then you've got your hands full with that. If you're holding a job and a caregiving position, then give yourself grace on what you are able to get done. When I had 3 in diapers and my father-in-law with dementia in diapers, you know, I took care of what I could take care of, and that was all there was to it. And people were just going to have to understand that. And if they didn't, that was their problem. You know, I was doing the best I could. And when my health has been in a bad place, then, you know, sometimes you're running around in your PJs all day because just making it back and forth to the bathroom is about all you can do. And there are just seasons that is where we are at. And that is okay. And we got to give ourselves that kind of grace, right? And if you have a season where things are taken care of, you've got a comfortable income, you have, you know, then if you can enjoy crafts or a hobby of some sort or something, you know, praise the Lord. Usually my crafts have served other purposes. Whenever I scrapbooked, I sold scrapbooking supplies to help pay for my addiction. A lot of times, you know, the things that I make are either for sale or they're gifts. So I love going to craft shows and selling things. So, you know, as far as the, like, quote unquote homestead situation, I am not, oh, my cutting is like so bad. I am not super, oh, what am I going for here? I'm not a big outdoor person. Let's put it that way. And like I said in video before, I'm not a canner. I like doing fermented foods. which don't take as much, but I have to pace myself. I did it again. I have to pace myself because the trip to the grocery store or the farmer's market or whatever, you know, to go get the supplies to make my sauerkraut or whatever, takes a lot of energy. So it's gonna be several days, if not a whole week, before I can get around to actually doing the kraut. So it better be good for that amount of time, you know. I like putting cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots in my kraut. And so, you know, it's going to be very ripe by the time I get it to kraut stage. Because yeah, the going to get the kraut is a lot for me. That's a big accomplishment on my end. So I have to rest for a couple of days after that trip. So it's like pacing yourself and realizing that, okay, I'm going to be taking a trip. I am going to have to rest for, you know, for some time after this. And it's just part of the deal. I'm trying to reinforce these areas that I think are going to get a little bit more wear and tear and stress. That's why I'm going back and forth in several areas. Hopefully I won't end up with holes. This is a heavy fabric. It's almost a denim. It's a twill. If you've been watching my videos for very long, this was part of my backdrop in my videos for a while. But people thought I was doing Trump or something, you know, patriotic. It was actually, I like the stars, well, for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a Wonder Woman fan. There it went. How did I just know that was going to happen again? And I thought I would get around to making me some capris and make a matching little outfit for my granddaughter, but I haven't got that done. So it ended up being backdrop, and I have, you know, my first book is about the constellations, so having the stars in the background just made sense for a little while. But once the 2020 thing, it was like, people thought I was being all patriotic with it, and some people took that well and some people didn't take that well. So yeah, I moved it. It looked good, it was fun, but I'm using it for other things now. Anyway, so you need to sit down and make a list or a picture or something and get an idea of, okay, what are those skills and talents that God has given you, and put them in like one quadrant. And then over here on the other side, what are the callings you have on your life based on circumstances? Okay, if it's taking care of a parent, if it's your marriage, if it's children, you know, what are those things? And then, you know, what are the other things that you would like to do? And maybe split those up according to like home, garden, and homestead, and, you know, family, or just miscellaneous hobbies or things you want to learn, right? And get an idea of what will fit together. Okay, if I learn to quilt, I can make blankets for, you know, baby blankets, or quilts, elderly, you know, quilts, those little fidget quilts or something. I can learn how to do that. So quilting would make sense because this is something that I can use for gifts or something. If it's canning, again, you can use those for gifts. I mean, in my or for bartering. I mean, when we're talking about like prepping and stuff, you can do bartering. So, I would love to be able to trade a small quilt for, or a bag, a tote bag or something like that for, some honey or some relish that somebody has made or something like that. So think about what it is, do you enjoy being outside? Look at that. Maybe do the Myers-Briggs personality test if you haven't done that yet, and learn about yourself. I'm an INTJ, introvert, intuition. The T is thinking, analytic, and judging, which doesn't mean that I'm judgmental. It just means that I judge situations in an analytic way. So I'm very analytic. It helps to know that being an introvert means that if I have to people, I have to psych myself up for it and get the energy, up for that. I have to make sure I'm well hydrated and nourished for it. And then I have to make sure that I've got some downtime to rest up and recuperate from peopling. As an intuitive person, I have to be careful because empathy can drain you. So if you start having a lot of empathy for people, that can really drain you. So that's why I say I'm a prayer warrior. I will pray for you. I like whenever you guys reach out to me and give me, your prayer requests and stuff. Because that prayer, it's like, understanding your story and you sharing that with me, I empathize completely. I mean, I feel your pain physically. But then handing it over in prayer is a way that I can deal with that without it becoming overwhelming. Being a thinker and a judger is the analytic thing. I have to have math problems. I have to be able to analyze things. So that's where the research and stuff comes in. And understanding that that's the personality that God created in me helps me to understand where I need to put my energies, right? So the empathy part of it is very much my creative part that I'm able to put in the creativity and stuff whenever I start feeling really emotional and that starts taking over. This is where I go, I turn on some trashy country music or something, or some praise and worship, whatever I'm in the mood for the day, and I just drowned myself in sewing and music, and that helps. Sometimes I paint. I do other things too. I do lots of different crafts and arts and crafts and stuff. But yeah, that's what I do. And I need some of that time. So you need to know. And, they used to have those tea towels that had Monday was wash day, Tuesday was ironing, Wednesday was, baking. And you know what I'm saying? Those old tea towels that had the different days of the week for things. And that has always helped me. It's like, that is something, if they had it on tea towels, then that is something that they were using. Great grandma and great great grandma used that. They had certain days of the week that they had certain tasks for, and it helped them stay on track. It helped them pace themselves and know what it was that they were doing. So if you need a gardening day and and in the house doing whatever you need to be doing day, if you have a cleaning day, if you have a whatever it is, set those days aside for that. And these days, I need a grandbaby day. So that needs to happen. I've also, with the YouTube channel, I need a business day for the online stuff that goes with the YouTube channel and the whole Prairie Dust. Prairie Dust is a brand. Prairie Dust Trail is a whole brand. So I have homemaking, homesteading course. I have the books that I'm writing and getting published. I have, the blog and all the social media stuff. So, I mean, it is a whole thing. It's not just, popping out a video every once in a while. So it's a whole thing. And we've got a community, so I that's part of my thing. So I have a daily routine of, you know, I get out of bed, I go do, you know, brush my teeth and do my little daily morning tasks. And then I sit down with my phone and uh, first thing I do is look for prayer requests. That's my prayer time. I look for prayer requests and then I start going through emails, messages, and things like that. And I just kind of have that routine. If I find something cool to share with you guys or feel compelled to comment on somebody's post and, you know, the Lord gives me some inspiration, then I'll turn that into a post of encouragement or thought provocation or rant or whatever it is for the day. Provocation. That's a good one. Okay. You know, and then whenever I've got my coffee is done and the Shih Tzu is wanting to let me up off the recliner, then I start going about, you know, some more things in the day. So right now I kind of have like Monday sewing and creativity day, and Tuesday is workshops and things that I'm doing with other creators, and Wednesday is another like networking and learning day. Thursday's video day, and Friday's grandbaby day. Saturday is rest. That's where we are right now. And Sunday, depending on how tired I am, Sunday is sometimes more rest and weather. And sometimes Sunday is a garden greenhouse day, or, you know, cleaning or whatever. That's going to be, you know, more of a physical work day, if I can. So anyway, I hope this helps. I have sample routines on the blog in the homemaking part of things and in the homeschooling, both, of things that I just through the years kind of settled with. I have done really intricate schedules where I had every 15 to 30 minutes was blocked out for certain things in the day. Things never went as the schedule, but it gave me a jumping off point so that whenever those God-given interruptions came along, those divine interruptions came along, then I knew where I needed to get back on track. You know, so if you need to have some kind of a schedule, just so you have an idea of what your ideal day should look like, and then that will establish that consistency, and then, you know, give yourself the grace to be able to stop for those divine interruptions and, you know, do whatever he calls you to for that moment. Yeah, and as far as like consistency with like the children, and the animals, you have to, I had very, very simple rules with the children. It was love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And if they left toys on the floor, were they loving their neighbors as themselves? No, because I'm going to step on it and trip or whatever. If or they're not appreciating the toys that somebody has given them and taking good care of them. If they hit, you know, their sibling, then they're not loving their neighbor as themselves. And it made it really easy. My father-in-law needed simple rules for the children. So he couldn't argue with those two rules at all. And so, you know, and I never did a 1, 2, 3. No, you're training them to disobey when you either count the 1, 2, 3 thing, or you tell them something over and over and over and over again. So if you tell them, be quiet, I'm on the phone, and they're not quiet while you're on the phone, there is nobody in this world that is going to mind if you say, excuse me for a second, and you go, quiet that child down, whatever it takes to do that. Or if you have to call them back. First time, that's it, period, end of story. Now, you need to establish these things, but, so giving grace every once in a while, or mercy, and, every single time that you take a trip outside of the home or somebody gets sick, that routine gets messed up, right? So, they're going to test those boundaries again. Well, our elderly will do the same thing. They're like a child that you can't spank and put down for a nap. So, they do the same thing, but you've got to establish those boundaries so you're not just going absolutely nuts with them. So, you have to, if they're going through dementia or something, then they can't communicate. They're communicating like a toddler. So, my father-in-law could not tell me when he was in pain. He could not tell me when he made a mess. He was just incapable of it. And it was so frustrating. But at the same time, it was just the way it was. So if he made a mess, whenever I found it, I had to clean it up. It just had to be done. At the same time, I had to, you don't hold the baby unless I'm sitting there with you. Because he dropped one of our children a couple of times, and they got to the point that they didn't want to be held by Grandpa, and they were kind of afraid of Grandpa, obviously. And it's like, no. So he went around town telling everybody I wouldn't let him hold the babies. And I'm like, that's not nice. So I'm like, you can hold the baby. So I had to make sure that every once in a while I actually sat down with him and put the baby in his lap and let him hold the baby, So we have to think about those things and that's where the analyzing does help me. And if you're not an analytic person, talk to an analytic person to help you with those things. And even an analytic person needs to sometimes talk with a more creative, a more feeling person, so that, because I tend to be very authoritarian. And so I need, and luckily, God blessed me with a man who is very sensitive and very feeling, and pretty much the opposite that I am. So he was very permissive and very, very sweet about things. And so we would balance each other out. Sometimes we would get frustrated with each other, of course, but we made it. We got through it. But I hope this helps. Everybody's situation is different, and if you have specific things that, oh my goodness, this is going to be such a mess, guys. If you have specific issues that you're really, really, struggling with, don't be afraid to say something. If you really want help. I mean, some people, let's just face it, some people really don't want help. They don't want, they want to believe that their circumstances are beyond, being able to do anything about, and they just, some people are happy to be miserable. So, I mean, if you're that person, then please move on, because I can't help you, and you don't want help, right? So if you don't want help and you don't like what I'm saying, then just move on. But if you really do want help and you want some ideas and stuff, oh, that is going to be such a mess. Then, don't be afraid to email me or message me and let me know what your situation is, and I'll help you brainstorm. I don't necessarily have all the answers, but, that's what we're here for as sisters in the Lord, is to help brainstorm with each other and, help each other with ideas. There is nothing in me that believes that I have all the answers to everything, or that what has worked for me is going to work for everybody else. There's no, you know, one size fits all thing for everybody. There's just not. And we need to understand that. And there are times when life is just going to be out of control for a while, because you've got circumstances in your life that are beyond, you know. And we know that ultimately the Lord has control of the situation, but He allows other people with their free will to cause chaos sometimes. And a lot of times, those of us who are trying to live a good, righteous life end up with the brunt of that, and having to deal with the aftermath and clean up the mess, honestly, of other people's chaos. And God gives us that because He knows we can, you know. And I know sometimes we don't want to hear that because we don't feel like we, you know, I'm tired of dealing with everybody else's trash, right? And sometimes you have to just distance yourself from people. Boundaries are important. And if you haven't read Henry Cloud's Boundaries book, you know, get it in audio or something, and really put that to thought and see how that fits in your life and what boundaries you need to have in place. Because usually whenever things are out of control, there's a big portion of our boundaries that we have just let get, that we just have not set. And people will, you know, balk at first once you start setting some boundaries, but eventually they're going to respect you more because of it. And, you know, I have had to let people go. Family members, friends, you know, I've had to just move on and say, okay, this relationship is no longer serving either of us in any kind of edifying way. We need to let it go. And it hurts, and it's frustrating, and it's sad, and you'll have to grieve it. Give yourself room to grieve it, you know, but do it. It doesn't matter how much you love them. If they can't respect your boundaries, then they're, you know, they need somebody else in their life for a while. And, you know, there's some people, unfortunately, that we may not ever have restitution with this side of heaven. And we need to be okay with that as well. And it took me a long time to get to that point. And, you know, not everybody wants our help. Not everybody wants our care. Not everybody wants us to be who God created us to be. And I have had to really just distance myself from a lot in order to find myself again and realize who God created me to be, and that person is okay, because that's His image in me, you know, that little piece of His image that is in me, and he's okay with it. And if nobody else is, then I can't help that. You know, other people's expectations, or what we think, a lot of times it's not even other people's expectations, it's what we think other people's expectations are. You know, like the house, you know, being a mess. Well, you know, I've got a lot going on that I don't keep up with because I have to pace myself. So I may have several projects going on, some that take physical energy that have to, you know, sit and wait for a while until I have that physical energy to put into it. And then some things that don't take as much energy. So, you know, by the recliner, I've got some knitting sitting there, and my Bible, of course, and some coloring, and, you know, pretty basic stuff that I can do in the recliner. In here, I've got some quilting, sewing, clothing, you know, things. And guys, I take on way too much. I mean, I like learning new things, so that's part of my thing. So, you know, my hobbies and crafty things and stuff are probably way out of hand compared to a lot of people, just because I love learning new things all the time. And then I have, you know, over by the computer, I try to keep things in small areas. So my, you know, the greenhouse and garden, that's a fairly small area. We have 50 acres. I'm not going to cover the whole 50 acres. I have a small area, and I'm going to make as much fit into that small area as possible. And if it gets overrun with weeds, which happens every single year, I'm not going to lose any sweat over it. Well, I'm going to sweat because it's going to be over 100 degrees here in the summer, but you know what I'm saying. See, it's going to be okay. It's going to be a bone. It's going to be a very lopsided bone, but hey, it's going to work. I'm going to stuff that booger and then hand sew over here, and I will have a new bone pillow. So anyway, I hope this helps. Kind of a little pep talk, maybe, to, I know this is probably annoying. The wind's blowing terrible outside, and I hope that the audio is halfway decent. If it's not, this is only for a few people, I'm sure. And yeah, that's just kind of the way it is. So if you have any questions, let me know. I can do a follow-up on this. I do have the whole homemaking and homesteading course. It's not like other people's stuff. It will not teach you like canning and things like that. It's not the hands-on. It is more of this. It's the organization. It is why we do some things the way we do, and why we, you know, how we prioritize those things for our unique situations and circumstances. Because I think the mindset that we have and the organization that we put into things, and figuring out our own personal gifts and stuff, that is the most important thing. We can always learn the skills. But if you're trying to learn everything, you're going to be so overwhelmed, you know. And I just see this happening time and time again. If you're not in a perfect situation with a really good income or a lot of money set aside to invest in the gadgets, the gizmos, you know, whatever, to make things like prime, then if you do, then you just need to move over to you know, Melissa Norris's channel, or somebody like that can give you the ins and outs and tell you all the gadgets and stuff that you need to get. If you want to learn to be resourceful and work from where you're at, then mine might be a little more to your liking. It's more of a depression era, working with nothing and prioritizing, you know, through hardship course. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll get that information to you. If you have some other questions and stuff, and you know, if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and you're low on finances or something and you would like to take the course, let me know and I'll figure out a way to work with you. I've got bills I need to pay, but you know, I want you to have the help that you need. So if I can help you in that way. So anyway, thanks for watching, and remember, you can make it through the dust storms of life with God's divine help.